Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. The Dated Dons are back, and after a weekend of yet more possession, passes and shots, ultimately Aberdeen failed to find the back of the net as the Dons felt a disappointing 2-0 defeat at home to the Steelmen. I'm sure Alan Burrows has already been on the phone to congratulate Dave Cormack on another valiant but ultimate fruitless display. Joining me as usual to pick the bones over Saturday's disappointment is Calum. How are you doing, Calum? And secondly, you were the only one of us at the game. What was it like?
It was the first half pretty enjoyable, and then it just went rapidly downhill as soon as it came out for the second half, essentially. This will be a fun podcast, especially since I was the only one there, and that always makes for an interesting one.
Yeah, I was at a friend's wedding, so congratulations to the new Mr. and Mrs. Miller. It was a great weekend and a welcome distraction from the maybe second half horror show that unfurled at Pittodrie. And I did watch the highlights on Red TV, and I think the first thing I said to you was, how on earth did we not score in that game?
Yeah, that is exactly what we said, and echoing, I think, not only mine, but probably basically everyone else's feelings too. I felt we came flying out the trap. Very well. I thought there's only, I said it last time against Hearts that there's only going to be one winner, and I thought about saying it again. I didn't say it, and thank God I didn't, because I look like an idiot. But it was just so frustrating. We started off really, really well, and it just grew more and more frustrating as the game went on. Not fun.
Yeah, and certainly like scrolling through social media when I got home from the wedding on Saturday night, it seemed to kind of the summary seemed to be, story of our season. Even, when we looked at those of us that were down there that are Aberdeen fans, because the wedding was down in Kilmarnock, we were looking through the stats at full time, and you even just look at that and you just think, well, where have we seen that before? We haven't seen that maybe for 3 games, but I don't think, from what I've certainly seen, it's really back to square one again. I know there'll be certain people out there ready to jump back on the bandwagon in terms of that, but from what I've read and what I saw, certainly first half, there can definitely be some encouragement to be taken. Is that fair to say? From obviously as someone that wasn't at the game, do you see that's fair from someone that was at the game?
Yeah, I would say so. It's not. It's frustrating. It's a disappointing result, but it's not a total disaster. The performance, especially in the first half, was pretty good. The second half, we just didn't really get going so much. But there's definitely positives to take. Created a lot of good chances. Unfortunately, didn't take them. However, on the flip side, we'll get to it. Negatives as well, defending in particular, which seems to be the case this season, and definitely improvements needed 100%.
Yeah, and I suppose, we can maybe attribute some of that to the fact that we are missing so many key defenders, or natural defenders, if you want to call them that. But at the same time as well, how much can you blame Glass for some pretty much basic footballing knowledge, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, exactly. It's just sort of schoolboy errors, essentially. Some from Joe Lewis as well, which is not great. But it's okay. Yeah, Dean Campbell and Futsuojo, not defenders. You can maybe even argue Ross McCrory, not 100% a natural defender, but they're footballers. They've got to have some sort of tactical awareness at times, and sometimes it's so lacking. It's unbelievable. Not great whatsoever. Roll on the return of Andrew Considine, wherever that may be. I didn't think we'd miss him this season. Yeah, I didn't think we'd miss him that much, but yeah, here we are at 34 years old, crying out for him to be back.
Yeah, I know, and but in terms of injuries and different changes, as always, we always look at the team news that came out before the game, and for the first time this league season, because I decided not to go into the European competitions and check what the continuous starting 11s were for Aberdeen, but for the first time in domestic competitions in the Scottish Premiership anyway, that's the first time we've named the same starting 11 as the match previous. And what's that, 12 games in now? I think that shows that either Stephen Glass hasn't been able to find the right mix, but also equally we have struggled with the aforementioned injuries like you've touched on.
Well, it's very frustrating that that's the first time in the league we've managed to field the same 11 2 games in a row, and it's certainly not the best 11. Looking at the defence in particular, obviously, but yeah, it's very frustrating. Can't get that consistency, be it through injuries or just players not performing. Also, but I was happy to see us keep the same side than we had against Hearts. A very, very good performance against Hearts, and it started off very, very well in the first half. They seemed to sort of carry on from where they left off, I guess, in a sense, from the previous week as a whole, essentially. But it just didn't quite. It was one of those days you felt like if we don't score in the first sort of half an hour, maybe it's never going to happen. And could have been playing till midnight probably.
So as you said, we made a fast start, kind of picking up where we left off from the victory against Hearts. We saw that early on. Maguire flying into a tackle on Funso Ojo, very lucky to avoid a booking somehow. We always seem to be talking about refereeing decisions on here, but Motherwell seem to make a lot of niggly tackles, which I'll come on to in a second. But that positive start, getting on the front foot, Ramirez unlucky with a volley, and then Ferguson, I think that's when we started to see what you touched on there about was going to be one of those days. Well, it became the Liam Kelly show, because he decided to probably put in one of his best performances of the season, after me saying in previous weeks he's not exactly covered himself in glory ahead of the Scotland squad. Well, he decided to do so after the squad's been named.
I think he took the exclusion personally, by the looks of things. He was brilliant, to be fair. We've got to give it to him. Not so good with his feet at times, but we ultimately didn't capitalise. But yeah, he had he was on top form. A very, very unfortunate. As you say, we mentioned the Ramirez volley and the Ferguson chance where he broke into the box, ballooned it over the bar, I think, with his left. If he hits the target, well, he really should have hit the target there.
Yeah.
And frustrating, obviously, that he didn't. But you're right. We came flying out the traps. We had several chances from set pieces as well. I think there's a couple cleared off the line at times. With every set piece, we seem to be like, if we don't create a chance from it, it's a disappointment. Whereas in previous years, not quite the case. So that's at least another positive to perhaps take. And just unfortunate we didn't, capitalise. We weren't clinical enough from them, really.
Yeah, and that's what I've got written in our notes was, should we kind of, you touched on there the Lewis Ferguson chance where he ballooned over, and I kind of thought he maybe went for power instead of placement with that opportunity when watching back. Do you think in certain instances we're almost trying too hard? We maybe need to just show that bit more composure in front of goal.
I think so, a little bit at times. It's very, very frustrating. I think with the composure, would have helped. Definitely. I think at times we do see that from likes of Ramirez, etc. But I think particularly in that Ferguson chance, I think you're definitely right. Lacking some composure somewhat, and as you say, going for power instead of placement. It's very contrasting from the chance he had against Hearts, where we prodded it with his right foot straight at Gordon, pathetic attempt,
and then pass back.
Exactly, and then he goes to the complete other end of the scale this week. Maybe after the international break, you'll have that happy medium. That would be nice, but I think the concern comes when those chances aren't coming, though. The fact we're still creating, we're still playing some good football for decent spells of the game. That's why I'm not so concerned about that result. I think Motherwell obviously had a point to prove after some poor performances as well. They wanted to kick on and get a good result going into the national break. And I did say in the preview that it's almost just as big as those games, because we've proved we can turn up in the big games. It's those kind of games where we're expected to go and take control and win that we need to start taking control of and winning, which we ultimately did not do.
No, we ultimately did not do. And I think, again, the point you made earlier about it being one of those days is kind of emphasised by that last point you made. We should be encouraged that we are creating so many of these opportunities, and compared to probably the last 2 or 3 games that Liam Kelly's played, on another day, most of these chances probably find a way past a desperate save from Liam Kelly, or it doesn't find a defender on the line blocking the shot and heading it past the post for a corner. So it just happened to be one of those days. And you're absolutely right. As set pieces now, we are carrying a constant threat, and we are opening up teams. But football ultimately is a results-based business, but that is not on Stephen Glass. If a player cannot find the back of the net, he has engineered a style of play that we haven't seen in previous seasons, and we are creating the chances. But if the players can't take it, I don't see how that's the manager's fault.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the philosophy's probably been implemented now. I think the players have probably bought into it, perhaps maybe the quality lacking at times. But I suppose that'll come once, Glass maybe gets another couple transfer windows, perhaps to shape the squad a little bit better. In terms of that kind of thing, I don't like the blames on Stephen Glass as well, on the attacking sense, not taking the chances, but also some of the defending as well. There's nothing he could do to improve some of that, just total lack of awareness at times, baffling, really.
Yeah, and I touched on about how Barry Maguire was lucky to escape a booking early on. I think he did eventually pick up a booking as the game progressed. Motherwell committed 23 fouls, picking up 5 yellow cards. Probably statistics Heart of Midlothian will be very much proud of in years gone by. I want to say, are we maybe, do we need to learn to adapt our style of play when teams get a bit physical with us? Is that something that maybe came across in the game on Saturday?
I think possibly. In all honesty, though, I don't know how you then do combat that. I think it's clear Motherwell came up with the game plan of not really attempting to not get us getting the flow of things, and I suppose to an extent it worked. They got the result. They took their chances too, but yeah, they were physical. They would be describing it nicely. Probably the most physical side we've seen this season, at times maybe verging going overboard a little bit. But I'd also like to commend Don Robertson. I've said that I don't think the referees are corrupt or whatever. I think it was incompetency. This is ironic, really, isn't it? I can't say the word what I'm trying to say. Can you try to help me out, private education, please?
Incompetent?
Yes, incompetency. Does that make sense? I don't know.
If that's a word.
Yeah, but there's competency. Oh, God. Everyone knows what I'm trying to say. I'll just get on with my point. He was incompetent. It seemed like there was one thing in particular where I think it was Bates was chasing down a ball, and then there was a Motherwell player chasing him too. And I think the Motherwell player clipped him. Bates sort of fumbled into it, and it went out for what should have been a corner. He had an Aberdeen goal kick. So it should either be a free kick to us or a Motherwell corner. And he just got it completely wrong. And I think he lost control at times as well. He was abysmal. Couldn't hear his whistle either. I don't know what was going on. More of a rant about the referee than anything else about the game. He was the worst part of it.
Yeah, well, I think the worst part is certainly to come with some of our defending, but when we go in at 0-0 at halftime, given the sort of dominance that's been shown in that first half display, I suppose it is right to expect a reaction from Motherwell, but equally probably surprise amongst the home crowd that we don't continue where we left off as the second half starts. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. We came flying out of the traps to start the first half. You'd have thought probably the second too, and continued to put Motherwell to the sword. Not the case. It just sort of seemed like we never really got going. And then it just so happened that when Motherwell got those 2 chances, they took them both. And, fair play. Van Veen, he proves a threat, but perhaps not being clinical this season. Oh boy, was he. This weekend.
Yeah, he's only scored 4 goals in the Scottish Premiership, 3 of them coming against Aberdeen. So he only seems to turn it on against us, which is, I suppose you could double up the fact that Motherwell have only had 4 shots on target against us and scored 4 goals against us. So, yeah, they certainly know how to be clinical when it comes to playing Aberdeen. But, Stephen Glass, in his post-match comments made, if, we weren't capitalising on our dominance, and it's been the story of our season so far. And I don't know, this is just a point that I saw being made on social media about the team attacking the red shed in the first half as they did on Saturday. and got the feeling that had it been attacking the red shed in the second half based on the performance of the first half, we might have gone on to win the game. I know it's obviously a bit of hindsight now, but do you kind of agree with the way the Hearts game transpired in certainly the momentum and anticipation building in that second half as Aberdeen were driving on looking for the equaliser and ultimately winner? Do you think in that game, based on how we played first half, if we'd been attacking the red shed in the second half, it could have been a different story?
I'm not saying definitely would have been. I think it could have been. I think we did see the benefits of it against Hearts, and given the way the game first half went against Motherwell, perhaps in the second half, if we had been attacking towards the red shed, the momentum would have grown, as you say. But there's obviously no guarantees that we wouldn't have still gifted them 2 goals and they would have taken their chances. But it is frustrating because it would. I think is that Hearts game the only time we've really seen it attacking the red shed in the second half. It would be something I'd like to see more of.
Well, the Dundee United game was we definitely did, and I think there was a couple of the European games we did as well.
I'm not convinced about the Dundee United game, but I could be very wrong. I've got because did Ramirez not score at the other end? Ball got played across.
I remember Johnny Hayes definitely scored in front of the red shed. But
people will be shouting us at home. They've probably definitely got an answer because they clearly have better memories than we do. But that's something that we've never claimed on this show once. So that's
no. It was definitely the second half in the Dundee United game.
I apologize.
No, the first half. Sorry, no, the first half we did attack the red shed in the Dundee United game.
There you go. So was I right?
You were right, yeah.
Blimmin' heck, this is news to me, like very, very unlike me.
Now, we spoke there, you made a good point about the fact that regardless, whatever way you shoot, dominating, we can always allow, you can't then allow for sloppy defending and gifting teams goals. Now, this is ultimately, if you don't take your chances, teams are going to punish you. Mm-hmm. But you want teams to punish you by almost earning that right by, a well-worked goal, not you handing them a goal and then quickly following it up with a second. And it's, again, we spoke about the fact that we're dominating teams, creating chances being the story and not ultimately taking them being the story of our season. But gifting cheap goals is another unwelcome story.
Yeah. And it seems to be never ending, which is very, very unfortunate. I mean, the first goal, goodness me. Okay, Van Veen's finish is, to be fair, brilliant. Mm-hmm. You can't knock that, especially the view I had from the South Stand. Great finish. But goodness me, there's like I saw a still image on Twitter. There's like 4 players sort of nearby him, but no one really picking him up, and he just ends up wide open, and not even one of them goes to bring attention to him, nothing like that. The communication just totally lacking, so schoolboy, it's unbelievable.
I absolutely know the still you're referring to, mm-hmm. And like I said, having not been at the game and not watching the highlights until Sunday evening and again today just to refresh my memory, the fact when I saw that still, I was assuming it to be a header, not a superbly deft touch. But also how alarming that still is, that the fact there's 4 players mm-hmm. all standing in front between the ball and Kevin Van Veen. Mm-hmm. It's just so schoolboy, it is beyond belief. And as you watch, so again, like I said, having seen that still and then watching the action back, the fact that David Bates looks over his shoulder, sees that Van Veen's unmarked, points, I think it's at Lewis Ferguson to say, look, watch the run, and then watches the ball fly over his head. Okay, I'm not blaming him for that. I don't think he can get onto the cross. But when Van Veen turns it into the back of the net, he proceeds to then turn at Scott Brown and point at Scott Brown and say, well, you should have been in between us. I mean, he's looking at Scott Brown when the cross is coming in. So obviously he knows he's out of position. He's already been made aware that there's a player behind him because he's pointed at somebody else. Take some responsibility. There's another 3 men in front of you. There's no common sense in the defence. And, people maybe think we've got a bit of an agenda against David Bates, but it's a recurring theme that these goals seem to be associated with or around him.
I would love nothing more than for David Bates to be absolutely brilliant, for Aberdeen to be fantastic and keep clean sheets every week. But it is beginning to be just an unfortunate sort of common theme that there's a little bit just lacking. And I think now we're in November, I don't think we can really blame it on the match sharpness. I think it's just it's just a lack of organisation there, really, essentially. And the communication was just lacking. As you say, schoolboy is basically the best way you can describe it. Very, very frustrating. But the fact it's just continuous. And okay, like Stephen Glass has recruited, David Bates. He picks the team, he puts them out there. Yeah. But there still has to be, like, he's obviously recruited him because he trusts him. But there's got to be some sort of, as you say, like accountability from Bates himself or whoever it may be that makes the mistake, regardless. But there seems to never be. It's just so bad. And it's getting really, really frustrating because it's just handing them goals every week, every single time.
Yeah, and the problem is when we can't be clinical enough to even get one goal, we can't be affording teams cheap goals and forcing ourselves to then have to find two just if we want to win the game, which is something we touched on many games ago when we were in that barren spell. And it feels like I said, I don't want to say we're back to square one, but we're back to square one in terms of poor defending, because against Hibs, Rangers, okay, maybe the set piece aside, the free kick goal, we have actually been defending well in that 3 games where we actually got some positive results.
Yep, and I think you're right. It's just there was an improvement in that week, defensively, taking our chances going forward too. It's just frustrating that it's I wouldn't say back to square one, it's just a setback. And especially going into an international break as well, it's always nice to go into an international break off the back of a win. But off the back of a defeat where it's like that, where it's just like, it's also just, once again, our own fault. It's just really, really frustrating. If Motherwell came and played us off the park completely, then you'd hold your hands up and say, fair enough. But it's just, we're just handing teams goals week in, week out, and handing away 3 points or even a point would have been okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, even, okay, before the game, you probably wouldn't have accepted a point given the way the results had gone. But overall, in the context of this little phase of games, obviously in between the previous international break and this last international break of the year, you would have probably taken it from where we were and then looked to build into what is going to be a busy Christmas period for not only the club but ourselves, churning out loads of podcasts coming up. And when we get into December, it'll be episode 100 as well. So, once again, thank you for all your continued support to the podcast. I know this episode maybe hasn't been our cleanest in recent weeks, but hey, look, we've all got our own lives to live in. We do still, this to us is just a bit of a laugh. And, we do provide this for the fans. And we thank, all of you for still sticking with us and tuning in. We saw that for the first time this week, one of our episodes hitting 600 listens, and we're closing in on 700 subscribers. So if you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. We do really appreciate all the support you guys are continuing to show us this season.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would like to say, for being 2 specky tubes and never ever having claimed to have known what we're talking about, we do appreciate the support lots and lots. There is a fair amount of you, and I've got to commend you, Glenn. What a pro you've become. What a plug that was. It's just so seamless these days.
I know, I've obviously learned a lot of Robert Borthwick's brief appearance on the show and getting my links all sorted. But back to the game, Calum, and we spoke there, we can't afford to give teams a soft goal. We certainly can't give them 2 soft goals. And, I said that it was, schoolboy was maybe polite. In the notes that we've come up with for the episode, I've described them as being soft as shite. And I think the second goal in particular is definitely of that variety. But you had a point in being in that game that you think the whole build-up to that goal was avoidable if Joe Lewis does better?
I think so. I can't remember who crossed it, and I think Brown in Joe Lewis's 6-yard box sort of flicks it on. There was no real danger. Lewis should have come out and collected that ball. I don't think there's any questions. about that. I've been complimenting Joe Lewis especially in these last 3 games prior to this. I thought he looks, getting back towards being at his best, but it's just your goalkeeper, you're 6'5", something like that. Come out and command your box. If you have to clatter your own player to collect that ball, do it. Yeah. It's absolutely fine. I'm sure they'll understand. They'd rather that than we go and concede a soft goal later on. So I think we have to prevent it getting to even the free kick stage there by Joe Lewis coming out and collecting the ball. Very, very frustrating. And then obviously comes to the free kick. A bit dubious, I guess. What was used? I think it is a free kick. It's high feet, but also he doesn't touch him. So I can still understand why there is a little bit of back in my day that wouldn't be given kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's obviously the clip that's made its way onto social media is the fact that there's no contact. Dylan McGee doesn't make contact with the face, but you also cannot go that high challenging for the ball, because if he does make contact, it is a free kick. So I can definitely see why it was given, and I don't really have any complaints with it. But like the Rangers game before it, if you agree or disagree with whether or not it's a free kick, fucking defend the thing. Come on. Don't leave 2 players free at the back post. And then when it's headed across, Scott Brown, why are you leaving your man? There you go, tap it in. Thank you very much. 2-0. Mountain to climb to even get a point back in the game.
Again, from a non-clinical striker, it would seem rather decent enough finish as well from Van Veen. But oh my goodness, I saw it live. I'm watching it back. It just gets worse and worse. 2 men at the back post. If whoever headed it back across did not get there, there was literally someone else 5 yards behind them. No one near any of them who could have just volleyed it back across. So frustrating, so schoolboy. For teams who are good at attacking with our set pieces, you'd think then we'd also be capable of defending them. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's it's frustrating and going from Craig Brown, who prided himself on being able to defend set pieces. It's just so frustrating because it's so cheap. If it's a brilliantly worked set piece, then fair enough, but it's just clipped to the back post and there's 2 of them spare. It's so simple. Yeah, nothing frustrates me more than a cheap goal like that, and I could only imagine how angry I would have been had I been at Pittodrie and some of the vile language that had been coming out of my mouth following the concession of said goal. But it just irks me that, and it's exactly the point I was away to make, for how good we are offensively at set pieces. That's 2 games now where we've been so poor defensively at set pieces and conceded from them. It's not good enough. But how much of that, again, it's obviously attributed to the bigger picture, which is a defeat for Aberdeen, which then, noises up the people that think Glass shouldn't be in a job. But you cannot blame the manager when players are not following simple instructions, and whether or not that is the fact that players do not understand their responsibilities at defending free kicks or not. Someone needs to take a look at themselves and take accountability for what is going on, because we say this week in and week out on the podcast. As soon as the players cross that white line, it's up to them to carry out the actions that the manager, coaching staff have given them. It just doesn't seem to be that maybe some players just don't know what they're doing. But you'd think they would be able to, communicate that with manager, if not the manager, Scott Brown, player coach, and they'd be able to iron these issues out. But it seems to just not be improving week in, week out. Even though we went and got good results against Hibs, Rangers, Hearts. Against Rangers, not defending the free kick, even though it was questionable, as you say. Hearts, lack of organisation before Josh Ginnelly picks up the ball and goes and wins the penalty. And then once again, 2 very, very cheap goals. It's just really, really frustrating. And I'm very glad we've got Alan Russell on board as a attacking specialist. Want to hire a defensive one, please, Dave? Thank you. Yeah. That would be nice.
Yeah, it is really frustrating. And like you said, it's more the fact that it just puts us on this kind of back foot in terms of going into the international break with no momentum from what we had going into the Motherwell game. And I think the fact that this was also given us an opportunity to build a 3-point gap on Motherwell, we now find ourselves 3 points behind the Steelmen. Hibs have got a couple of games in hand on us. Okay, we're still level on points with them as well, but just to start applying pressure to teams that we'd found ourselves very much adrift from, and we'd worked so hard to catch up to them. I think it's just disappointing that we've let that slip, and now we're gonna have to start again in terms of building that momentum up again, starting at Tannadice after the international break.
I think so. It would have been very, very nice, obviously, picking up another win going into the international break. And I say, then we would be in full of confidence going to Tannadice against a Dundee United side. Okay, they lost last game against Hearts, but they've been very, very good, basically since we last played them. And it would have just been, I think it would have just done wonders for the confidence going into the international break on the back of a win. I think the fans would have felt a little better. The players certainly would too, and it's just frustrating. But it's Aberdeen Football Club, isn't it? I think we've there's an expectancy. We've almost we're equipped with now at times.
It's the roller coaster that we have signed up to this season. But it has to be said that even though we did find ourselves 2-0 down, Callum, it maybe in years gone by that would have been the game would have petered its way out. We did stick in the game. There was Christian Ramirez had a penalty claim when Ricky Lamy hauled him to the ground before the cross came in. Apparently you can wrestle folk to the ground and get away with it as long as the ball's not in the box. And then probably the save of the day, Xander Clark had his own highlight reel last week, and Liam Kelly's definitely pulled off his own highlight reel this week, tipping a Ferguson header onto the post. And how David Bates does not follow that in, and I think it's almost like he gets handed the ball's tipped over his shin in some weird and wonderful way that only Liam Kelly's spell on his goal had. It just, that chance alone pretty much summed up the day Aberdeen had in front of goal.
I think so, and I think of maybe other than Joe Lewis, of all the players you want to be going in to potentially tap that ball home, the last person you'd pick is probably David Bates, which is just frustrating. But I think credit has to be given to Liam Kelly. That is superb. As you say, only he knows how he's done that. I never in my life would have thought there'd be such high competition to be Scotland's third choice goalkeeper. Who'd have thought it? Definitely not me, in the words of Paul Rudd. It's just baffling. But as you say, it sort of summed up our day. When that didn't go in, if you didn't know it before then, you definitely knew then that it's just not happening. Brilliant from him. And he'll probably go and have a howler in a couple of weeks' time, and then we'll wonder how the hell did that happen. But
probably. But should we be encouraged in a weird way, if you want to, that we didn't just give up the ghost at 2-0. We did keep going for it, trying to force our way back into the game, but we ultimately couldn't.
Yeah, I think although we did fail in that, I think I guess if you're going to take any positives from the game, that's probably another one. They did not give up. They still sort of did try and apply themselves. They didn't ditch the philosophy, and they still tried to, get that breakthrough for us. But just again, lack of clinical finishing, perhaps. But there is reason to be positive in that fact that they don't. Okay, they were beaten, but they don't really know when they are, because they did try and get back into the game despite failing. Yeah.
So obviously, we now head into the international break, and both hoping that Scotland can secure their place in the World Cup playoff places on Friday night against Moldova. But looking at Aberdeen, Callum, are we in a good place heading into the international break? As I said, currently sitting 7th in the table, tied on 15 points, just outside the top 6 on goal difference to Hibernian. And coming back from the international break, a trip to Tannadice, as we've touched on, 6 points behind Dundee United, who currently sit in 4th place, and Hearts above them on 24. So quick maths there, 9 points off 3rd place. Are we in a good place now? Have we almost stabilised from where we were at the previous international break?
I think off the back of that result, it's obviously frustrating, but we are in a better place than I thought we would be after that Dundee game. Put it that way. So to continue looking at the positives, I think we are a little bit better off than I thought we are. We're not a million miles away from the sort of chasing pack or whatever, if you like, sort of Dundee United, Hearts, Celtic too, I guess too, and obviously now behind Motherwell. But we're not a million miles away. I think performances, the results all go our way, but there is decent performances in there. And we had managed to grind out a few good results in there, still playing some good stuff. I think, as you say, it's very, very important, this run of fixtures after the international break too. I think they just need to be patient with it. It's obviously frustrating, but it's very different to what it was before. The players are probably, still adapting, things like that. Mm-hmm. And there's also a transfer window coming up after this run of games too. So I think we should still be a little bit positive. We are in a better place than I thought we would be, given that Dundee game, essentially. So I'm not all doom and gloom. And I've been quite positive this season. I'm quite happy with myself, in all honesty.
I have been very impressed by your positivity, but you're right. It's an interesting run of fixtures when we come back from the international break. 2 away games, Tannadice and Parkhead, followed by, it's actually going to be 3 games in a week, because after the trip to Parkhead, it's a midweek game against Livingston, and then weekend against St Mirren. So 2 home games against teams currently below us in the league, hopefully opportunities to capitalise there at home after what is probably going to be 2 tricky away games. So an important little run of games, as always, before the congested festive fixtures that we very much look forward to covering. And certainly something that we're hoping to do, Callum, is either another watch along, or one of the suggestions that has been muted on the back of the previous watch along was a live preview of a game, incorporating maybe a review of a previous game, maybe something that could be trialled around that Livingston game after the Celtic game at November, or certainly in and around the Dundee Rangers games, Boxing Day, 29th of December. And if you guys have any more feedback for the show, let us know either via YouTube, Twitter at RTG_podcast, Instagram RTG.podcast. Just give us a shout. We're open to learning, developing ways that you guys are enjoying the show, and certainly, Callum, I think that would be a fun way of doing one of these shows over the busy periods when we do have 3 games in a week. But for those of you that do tune in via audio, these live shows would be recorded and then released on your audio platform. So for those of you that do enjoy us on your commute, dog walks, don't worry, you won't be missing out at all.
Yeah, we've got them covered. I think it would be a good fun way to go at it in the festive period. Obviously, busy for Aberdeen, but as you said, busy for us too. But I think it would be entertaining, means we can interact. We can get people's immediate thoughts, bounce off them, sort of in the comments on the YouTube video as it's live. I think it'd be very, very entertaining. But obviously, let us know, as Glenn said, in the comments down below. As I'm always open to suggestions. If you've got any other ideas, then throw them our way. We're all family here, aren't we?
And we can always work a way to link it to our Twitter account as well, to make it more interactive for those of you that aren't on YouTube as well. But as Callum, you said, we have a window coming up as a January transfer window. There are players that we have signed in summer that haven't been maybe featuring as much as they would have hoped coming on loan. I'm looking at Teddy Jenks, Austin Samuels, who I know you want to touch on, but other players who we've seen at Aberdeen for a while, Conor McLennan, who I think has had a bit of an injury problem. Are there players that we might not see at Aberdeen come the January transfer window? Do you think Stephen Glass is currently working his squad out right now?
Perhaps a little. Matty Kennedy, another one.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget he exists. I won't
Until
lie.
He posted he's on holiday in Tenerife.
True. I also forgot Teddy Jenks exists. He got sent off against St Mirren. Have we seen him since? I don't think so.
No. He's been enjoying the golf courses in Aberdeen, which there's obviously plenty to do.
Yeah, he's having a lovely time in the North East, which, good for him. But I think there is, areas, if we can get players out the door, that'll then allow us to improve our squad in terms of having players who are actually competitive and will push the others even if they don't come in and start, which would be nice. You mentioned a certain frustrated player, Austin Samuels. I think, he posted on his Instagram story a photo from the game against St Mirren. T-shirt over the face. I think that tells you all you need to know. I would like to mention that in a game against Motherwell, when we find ourselves 2-0 down, a lot of the Motherwell players on bookings, a sort of explosive player, if you could call it that. Austin Samuels, you certainly got the pace. It is interesting that they continue to bring on sort of like Niall McGinn and Hayes ahead of him. I think he probably deserves a chance. He was pretty good against Celtic at times going forward anyway, perhaps defensively lacking. But then if he's defensively lacking and you're 2-0 down, doesn't matter anyway, does it? Can't be much worse.
We're defensively lacking most of the season anyway, and you're absolutely right, at 2-0 down, we might as well, what else do we have to lose? Because we're losing cheap goals as is. But there's certainly players, maybe Conor McLennan maybe needs some game time if he wants to have a future at the club. We see him head out on loan to recover from his injury. Matty Kennedy, certainly think he will be on his way out if the deal is right for the club. But I suppose there was also paper talk when we did the preview with Ben Palmer. There was the news of Ryan Hedges having interest from the English Championship. Since then, the Evening Express have noted that the club are hopefully confident of Ryan Hedges signing a new contract. I think if the club were that confident, my personal opinion is Ryan Hedges would have signed it by now. I'm really not confident he will be here next season. But again, he's another player vital probably to our success. We've seen how well he links up with Ramirez and Watkins so far. We don't want to be losing him come January. But then again, we just mentioned Austin Samuels. Is that someone that if Ryan Hedges was to go in January, he fills that gap? I don't know. It's you can't really compare the two, but
it's hard to say. I think nice to have both options. I think if Hedges is to go, we would probably be as well just letting it be at the end of the season, because we won't get much for him in January, because people know they can lowball. People will either have to take a small fee or just let him go at the end of the season. I think perhaps he's probably worth more just being here towards the end of the season, contributing. I think it'd be a shame if we do lose him. I'm kind of, as I would say, resigned to the fact that he probably will. We've seen it many times before. I don't know yet. And then, we see what happens. But, it's annoying. But, he's not gone yet. And Blackburn, who's the team who's been rumoured to be interested, did lose 7-0 to Fulham. So, Ryan, we haven't lost 7-0 for a while. So, come on. Let's see what you're about. Yeah, for a while, most importantly.
Certainly. And even, looking back at the defence, obviously Calvin Ramsey having a positive start to the season, currently on the sidelines. Hopefully, I know Stephen Glass is hopeful that both him and Jack McKenzie should be back after the international break. So you never know if he certainly picks up his performances where he left off. You might see a few clubs maybe testing the waters with bids in January. But where, if any, do you see us needing to strengthen come January? Is it a case of needing to strengthen the defence, or do we just need to hope that players come back from injury quicker than or as soon as possible, really?
We have centre backs. They are. You look at Devlin, Considine, both out. Will Devlin ever play again? Who knows? I still think an actual left-sided centre half. Whether that's to play instead of Considine, he is getting on a bit, but we do miss him. But we do need a natural left-sided centre half, I think, in addition to Considine. Point
then. So, given the way Dean Campbell has played at left back so far, I know, as I said, I wasn't at the game on Saturday, but a few people very quick to jump back on his back based on the result, as we touched on, maybe being made the scapegoat as usual. Would you be opposed to Dean Campbell continuing at left back, and when Jack McKenzie is back fit, slotting in at left centre back, allowing Ross McCrory into midfield?
Possibly, but then I'm also concerned because somehow Ross McCrory is being our best defender despite not really being a defender. So I'm still not convinced on Declan Gallagher either. So I don't know if letting McCrory out of there is the best plan. I think Mackenzie could be a decent left-sided centre-half. I think if he hits the gym, I think still a little bit too lightweight for me, maybe.
But then I suppose that was always a criticism of Dean Campbell as well. And I suppose the only, I hear probably people shouting at their radios or their TVs listening to this episode saying, well, where would you put Ross McCrory if you put Jack Mackenzie in at left centre-back, because of how well Dylan McGeouch's been playing in recent weeks anyway, and he's not going to dislodge the likes of Scott Brown and Lewis Ferguson either. But again, coming up to January, we don't know what bids we might see for Lewis Ferguson.
Yeah, very, very true. I think he doesn't go in January. He's gone at the end of the season, let's be honest. Yeah. Most likely, but I would also like to see him until the end of the season. I think, although maybe attitude has been questioned at times, not just by us, but by fans in general, from what I've seen. I think he still does offer something that the other central midfielders don't, in terms of a goal scoring threat as well. And he's got that nasty side to him, which is always welcome. So hopefully he does stay to the end of the season. I think another sort of attacking threat. In terms of natural wingers, I think these days we are lacking a little bit. And although our system perhaps does not always feature them, having one as an option is always fantastic. Someone who can deliver a ball into the box and can beat a man and get it across is always welcome. I think we are lacking that a little bit, especially with managing Niall McGinn still coming on and featuring. And I suppose actually it's a good point, because just looking at the the run of fixtures in December that I've got up in front of me, we have 3 games in a week twice over the festive period. Well, as we touched on there, the Celtic, Livingston, St Mirren games is 3 in a week, and then you've got the Boxing Day game at home to Dundee, home to Rangers, which is going to be a very tasty encounter on the 29th, 7:45 kickoff, and the 2nd of January trip to Dingwall, which I know many people are looking forward to. But when we speak of attacking players, Marley Watkins was a player whose game time is currently being managed. If he was to, struggle to play 90 minutes in those games, worst case scenario, Ryan Hedges picks up an injury. You've only really got an Austin Samuels and Niall McGinn, who's found his way back into the team recently in those attacking positions. So it maybe is a fair point that we maybe do need another attacking player coming in, but as you've touched on there, Matty Kennedy, who is very much out of favour, and Conor McLennan, who, as I said, I believe has been struggling with injury, but could also find himself out of favour as well. They're very much down on match sharpness. So will we be looking elsewhere? It's certainly going to be an interesting month, because with the winter break, so hopefully there are a few transfer rumours to keep us going, Callum. Oh yeah, the winter break is just sad, isn't it? I really miss the football in that time. So transfer rumours, as they often are, just rumours, but it's something to talk about. Quite like it. Quite like it.
Yeah, definitely. So we head into the international break on the back of a disappointing defeat, but many of you capitalised this weekend in our Red Tinted Glasses Scottish Fantasy Premiership League. Lewis Adamson currently leads the way on 764 points, but 11 points separate first to seventh, with Johnny Curry and Ian Brown closely behind on joint second, just a point behind Lewis, and Kyle Watt there slotting in on 760 points. Very close at the top, and you're actually in 7th place, Callum, so we still haven't decided what we're going to do if you do win this overall. But it is, for those of you who are watching, it is that Pittodrie print currently behind my head. We have been donated one of those prints to send to the winner of the Fantasy League. So it's very close at the top, and it has been for a few weeks. We just keep forgetting to mention it. So heading into the international break, it's a wee reminder for those of you still in the league that we haven't totally forgot about it.
I think I'm going to get my game face on now. I had a poor week, dropped down to 7th. I think if I win, it would only be right. We still give it away, and perhaps second place, a consolation prize, because I will be unbearable. So I feel like it's only fair. But I need to get my head in the game. I'm going to take it seriously now. I'm going to maybe even wild card it between now. Busy fixture schedule coming up. It's important. I'm going to knuckle down, Glenn. I'm ready.
Yeah, well, I'm going to suffer in the next game week because I went heavy with Celtic players and they obviously don't play next game week because of the Premier Sports semi-finals that are taking place, which will have a consequence on potential Aberdeen fixtures. I know many of the pre-Christmas fixture away to Hibs is in jeopardy of being scuppered depending on the outcome of their semi-final. But that will all be discussed when we come back after the Dundee United game anyway. But maybe we'll do a wee short preview of that game after the international break anyway. But as always, thank you very much for those of you that continue to tune in and watch along to these episodes. It's very much appreciated.